Yep. Bye.
Okay, if we could go ahead and get our next speaker up, we'll go ahead and get started. So our next speaker today is Chris Concienne from Helena Agri-Enterprises, and he's going to be talking about disease control and prevention in turfgrass. And with that, I will give you Chris.
And everyone hear me?
Yep.
Hear and see.
All right. Let me get rid of this. Is my screen showing?
We see PowerPoint.
Okay, cool. So we'll start that then. So we're all good. All right. Let me move some things around here. All right. As Jerry said, my name's Chris Concienne. I'm with Helena Agri-Enterprises, formerly Helena Chemical, and just a privilege to be with all of you today. As Jerry mentioned, I'll be talking about disease control and prevention in turfgrass. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So just a little about myself. Live in Spokane, Washington, and I've been with Helena for about 5 years now. And my territory, technically speaking, consists of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana. Usually I'm just kind of all Washington, maybe Northern Oregon, Northern Idaho, Western Montana. One person can't really cover my area. So that's usually where I focus on. So prior to Helena, I was in the golf industry for about 7-8 years, just working on golf courses as superintendent, GM, assistant superintendent, all that. Grew up in Granby, Washington, which is in the Yakima Valley, and graduated from WSU with a bachelor's science in crop and soil sciences, emphasizing in turf management. And yeah, so go Cougs. So obviously, yeah, today we're going to be talking about disease control and prevention in turfgrass, and just kind of the overview of my presentation. We're just going to go over kind of the why, what, and how, how a disease infects a plant, and, just basically all the reasons, and also better management practices. Obviously, if we can limit the use of any kind of pesticide, in this case fungicides, that's awesome. And so, I've always said the healthier the grass, the less pesticides you have to apply. So, and then we're just going to get into cultural and chemical control of 3 common turf diseases in the Pacific and inland Northwest. Obviously, I don't have enough time to go over every disease in our area, but feel free to reach out to me at the end if you have any questions. So first things first, you guys have probably already heard in previous presentations throughout the years, the disease triangle, right? So first we need a pathogen, then we need a host or susceptible plant, and then we also need the right environmental conditions for that host or for that pathogen. And if you get all 3 things, obviously you get a disease. So a susceptible plant, I mean, like I said here, a large patch doesn't infect Kentucky bluegrass in our area, but can be devastating to zoysia grass down south. And then, anthracnose, if we get above 40-degree soil temp or 40-degree temperatures, chances or below, I'm sorry, chances of that infecting are pretty unlikely. So just some things I wanted to cover on the better management practices. Basically, if if we can reduce any susceptibility, that's the number one thing we can do. And under that falls a lot of different things. For instance, increasing nitrogen may discourage anthracnose, but it may encourage summer patch development. And the next thing is around this area, especially east of the Cascades. We have to do a pretty good job of trying to manage our pH between 6 and 7. West of the Cascades, you guys are usually pretty low, so lime may be applied to raise that pH up. But basically, we want to be somewhere between that 6 and 7 pH in most situations. And this just kind of shows you just what nutrients are available at certain pHs. Like I said, between 6 and 7. Here it shows, about 6.25 to, almost 7.5 here. We have the most availability as far as nutrients go. So when we get into nutrients, nitrogen, generally speaking, I recommend anywhere from 3 to 4 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 for the year. Again, generally speaking, granular applications, we can usually do about 3 applications per year. Or we can do light liquid fertilizer every 1 to 3 months. And even in some cases on golf courses, these guys are applying every 2 weeks to a putting green. There are even some guys out there that apply weekly. So it's just whatever suits you, and there's lots of ways to skin the cat, right? As far as the granular application schedule, I just kind of wanted to throw this in there. This is very general. It's very, very different depending on where we're at, but basically 3/4 to a pound of nitrogen in the spring, April, May-ish. That's our wake up app. And then just kind of our summer app, we're just chilling, put a slow release out and just kind of let it do its job. And we typically want to do that between June and July. And then obviously in the fall, we're starting to carb load. So September, October are usually a good time to start loading the carbs up in the grass to go into the winter. Potassium. So potassium, typically I want to see about 1 to 3 pounds of K per 1,000 per year. In some cases, you may not even need potassium. It's dependent on what your soil tests show. But typically east of the Cascades, we do need that because a lot of it is locked up. And on that note, I will say paste extraction of potassium on your soil test. That's kind of your snapshot, what's available right now. So both are important. Your actual K value in the soil is important. That kind of shows you what's out there, but it may not be available. And that paste extraction is going to show you what's available. So I just got an example here. This is an actual customer. Obviously not going to share the customer with you, but in this situation, we can see if we were to look at this and we didn't see the potassium saturation extract test, we would look at this and we would say, wow, we're really low in potassium. We probably need to apply. But in reality, if we look at our potassium saturation extract test, it actually shows that we have an optimum amount at that point in time. So it's just always good to make sure you're doing that paste extract at least once a year just to kind of see where we're at. And then as far as phosphorus goes, obviously it's unlawful to apply in Washington State unless we provide a soil test or we prove with soil tests that we're phosphorus deficient. We can also apply phosphorus to new sod or new seed. One thing I'm starting to see as we banned phosphorus in 2011, the more soil tests I take year after year, we're starting to see that phosphorus starting to dive down a bit. Typically, I like to, if I see anything below 8 parts per million, we could start having conversations about supplying some phosphorus, because the one thing I see is, a customer might be applying lots of nitrogen to try and get something to grow, but it's not. And we take a soil test, they're low in phosphorus, we apply phosphorus, all of a sudden it's blown out of the ground and we're baling hay, because as you guys know, nitrogen and phosphorus coincide together. So water, you guys have all heard deep and frequent. I mean, that's the best way. And if you have that ability to do that, then I would recommend you would. And then we'll be talking lots about organic matter throughout the presentation, but if you can aerate as many times as possible, the better. Dethatch as well. And then seed variety, selecting seed variety can be very important. As I show in this picture, and I'm not going to talk about all this here, but tall fescue in a drought situation, you can see it's thriving in this. The rest of the grass is struggling a little bit there. So, but anyway, so moving on, one of the diseases I picked to talk about was anthracnose. Probably not too common on residential turf, mostly on putting greens, fairways, and golf courses. There's two types. There's the basal rot anthracnose, and then we have foliar blight anthracnose. Your basal rot anthracnose is going to be your most damaging, because it attacks not only the leaves, but the sheaths, crowns, and stolons of the plant. And typically it infects creeping bentgrass and annual bluegrass. So this could be common on the west side of the mountains with a lot of annual bluegrass. Symptoms they kind of vary. They're usually yellow to orange, maybe bronze in color, and they're really irregular, kind of almost freckle spotted in the turf, and they could be circular patches. A lot of times I'll see kind of a veiny looking patch, and that's usually a typical sign that you do have anthracnose. One big thing that they have noted with anthracnose on a lot of research has been if you aren't applying enough nitrogen throughout the year, the chances of you getting anthracnose go up pretty substantially. So just make sure you're maintaining that. And then also just stress turf. I mean, low mowing heights, excessive traffic, inadequate irrigation. All those things are going to lead to infection. So here you can kind of see the anthracnose, kind of just that irregular pattern. This kind of almost like that freckly, veiny kind of looking. Obviously, this is on a putting green. It's going to show up a little more than like say a yard or what have you. So symptoms are first going to appear on the oldest leaves, and as it progresses, you're going to see it move to younger leaves and have some dieback. On basal rot anthracnose, you're going to obviously see that moving down into the sheath and crown. And typically we can see these structures. Hold on, I got to pull my notes out for pronunciation. A cervuli, which is basically these little structures here, if you can see on my moist pointer. And from that, you get these black spines called setae. And you could kind of see that here and here as it's poking out. And this is very common. You can see this with the hand lens, and sometimes if you got good eyes, maybe just with the naked eye. So very good way to spot anthracnose, just looking at it closely. So again, preventative control, reduce stress, raise your mowing heights, all that good stuff. We kind of already talked about that. Maintain your nitrogen levels. And then as far as chemical control goes, preventatively is going to be the best way to treat this. Just take a note throughout the years if you've had it or seen it on a customer's lawn. Maybe you just or maybe in July or something you've seen it the last 2 years in this certain spot. Maybe you applied preventatively. Most of our DMI fungicides, Banner Max, Trinity, Tourney, Maxtima is brand new, Eagle, Torque, Balaton, Rayora, all these are going to be pretty good on anthracnose. And then our strobilurins, you guys probably all heard of Heritage and Insignia, Fame, Compass. Just make sure you read the label. Some of these are labeled only for golf courses or athletic fields and not residential, but some kind of cover everything. And then there's also some biological products out there, EcoGuard, Rhapsody, Regalia. Moving on, berry ring. So some people say there's 3 types. Some people say there's 2 types. In this case, we'll talk, kind of about all 3. Type 1 fairy ring is probably the most damaging to turf. Excuse me. And the reason for that is because it creates hydrophobic areas from these residues from the fungus. And obviously causes drought symptoms. And as time moves on, it could possibly kill the turf as well. In other cases, as this fairy ring's breaking down organic matter, it could release ammonium and into toxic levels and end up killing the grass. So type 2 is going to be your typical fairy ring that most oftenly occurs. We get that really dark green ring out there or crescent, and we might see some fungus or mushrooms popping up from that. Typically, these situations for type 2 can be masked with applications of nitrogen and iron. And if you don't have enough iron or nitrogen, the symptoms are gonna show up more prevalently. These are just some pictures. So obviously this would be your type 1. Kind of you've seen that hydrophobic area ring. This would be your type 2. You get that dark ring with the mushrooms. And then if you were to take like a core sample and basically put this in, say a Ziploc bag or some kind of controlled environment, we would see these hyphae start growing throughout the thatch of the grass. So all these types of fairy rings, they produce rings, arcs, patches. Again, type 1s produce drought stress rings. Now, fairy rings don't directly infect turf, but indirectly they can cause damage and possibly death. Your type 1 is going to be more, type 2 and 1 are going to be more prevalent during hot weather. It's going to show its ugly face. And then I kind of wanted to throw these in here. Kind of cool. The largest actual ring ever recorded is located in Belfort, France, and it's 2,000 feet in diameter. That's it's pretty insane. How they found that, I have no idea. And the next one, how they found this out, it blows my mind. But the largest and oldest organism in the world, and I'm not going to try and even pronounce this, but it's part of the Basidiomyces family. It's actually located in kind of our backyard, Eastern Oregon's Malheur National Forest, and it extends 2,400 acres and is 8,600 years old. So kind of crazy. They call them the honeydew fungus. They actually produce this like honey type stuff that drips. So and moving on here. So cultural control for fairy ring. You got to aerate. I mean, this pathogen loves organic matter. So if you have organic matter, it's going to be pretty happy. So obviously make sure your fertility is adequate. And in practice, deep and frequent irrigation, just to, if we do have thatch, we want to bust through that thatch with water So if we're just applying light frequent, it's just going to soak up in the top layer. So the use of wetting agents can be very helpful in trying to control the type 1 fairy ring. Helena's got a handful of wetting agents that we have to offer. Each kind of do their own special thing. If you have any questions about them, you can get with me or one of our other reps, and we can get you pointed in the right direction. As far as chemical control, there's new research coming out. You want to apply in the spring with 50 to 55 degree soil temps. So that kind of goes along with everything, generally speaking, pre-emergent, getting your pre-bug app out and all that fun stuff. And then your second application, make it about 2 to 3 weeks maybe prior to that first application. Your 2 applications should be 2 different fungicides with 2 different frac codes. So don't apply back-to-back DMI fungicides. You know, maybe do an SDHI like say ProStar or now Pedigree, followed by say, I don't know, some Torque or Tebuconazole 2-3 weeks later. So some common fungicides that have been proven to work on fairy ring are listed below. Some are new, some have been around for a while, but these guys usually do a pretty good job. And it may just take some playing around with to find which one works for you in your situation. So moving on, we got pink snow mold, aka fusarium, aka microdochium patch, whatever you want to call it. Presence of snow is going to equal snow mold. No snow, fusarium or microdochium patch. Excuse me again. Symptoms are usually about 2 inches to 1 foot in diameter, and then around the other, and these patches are white to tan, and on the outer layer, you're going to see a pink to salmon ring on the outer edge. These patches usually follow drain and mow patterns. The hosts vary from creeping bent, annual blue, perennial rye, Kentucky, fine fescue, and usually the disease is active from 32 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So these are just some pictures of fusarium or snow mold. Again, you can kind of see that pinkish tinge around the outer edge, and then you know, you can see some signs of mycelium here, the cottony looking stuff. Again, the fungal mycelium are very noticeable in the mornings before you've mowed. The best kind of like cultural control for fusarium is removing dew and you know, basketing your clippings and all that. You can spread it from mowing, so just kind of keep an eye on that. You may want to get it in check first before you start doing that. This disease likes to be in the cold, so you know, decrease shade, increase circulation, remove fallen leaves, and bag your clippings in the fall. Some of our best control options are always going to be preventative. A lot of my golf course guys, I mean, we will wait basically until the first big snowfall, and we'll time it right before that. So timing is going to be kind of crucial. But there's lots of fungicides out there that have proven to work. Your best course of action is going to be a contact fungicide with a preventative. Lots of options for contact out there. Again, some of these are labeled for residential and some aren't, so just check the label. And then just some things to keep in mind. Fusarium really doesn't like acidic environments. So using an acidic based fertilizer in the fall, like ammonium sulfate, has been proven to work a little bit. We're not changing the pH of the soil, but we might be changing, you know, that top inch where the fusarium's kind of active and where spores are. Make sure we have good potassium levels so we're nice and healthy going into the fall as well. Finally, the third disease I'll be talking about, necrotic ring spot. It occurs on Kentucky bluegrass, fine fescue, rough bluegrass, annual bluegrass. Identification signs, we're not really going to see these in the field, but we could see some hyphae with the hand lens that you can see here. But I've never really seen it. It's usually just the symptoms. And the symptoms are pretty, if you know what necrotic ring spot is, you've seen it before. It could be a fusarium, or it could be a fairy ring, could get mistaken for that. But one thing you could do to tell if it's necrotic ring spot or fairy ring is just go tug on an infected area that you think's infected, and if the roots pull right up and there's no root structure, there's a good chance it could be necrotic ring spot. So a lot of information on these slides, and I'm not going to try and talk all the way through them, but initial symptoms can take 12 to 18 months to first appear. And you'll see in these pictures here, we get that frog eye kind of look. Here's kind of the roots I was talking about. There's just no structure there, really black, pull up at ease. Here's some yards. You've probably seen this before.
And you're at 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. I'm almost done anyway. So, so some of the environments necrotic ring spot's going to be popping up as wet, cool weather in the spring and fall. Develops when temperatures are 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and becomes inactive about 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So it usually occurs in Kentucky bluegrass sodded lawns that are less 2 to 5 years old. It's very common on layered soils, hard pan conditions, and also prevalent on sandy soils that have low organic matter. And I'll kind of coast through these. And so cultural control, again, remove compaction and traffic, aerification, improve our drainage, air movement, decrease shade, kind of all these things we need for in most situations with pathogens. One thing I'd make note of is keep that soil pH around 6. That's going to be key. And then finally, there's a lot of Kentucky bluegrass varieties out there now that are resistant. So check into that. Perennial ryegrass is resistant. Chemical control, there's lots out there. Again, typically the most effective have been these here. Banner, Torque, Hyperdion, your Heritage. In the Spokane area, we usually like to apply our first application May to late May. Central Washington, maybe April to early May, right when our soil temps are hitting that 60 to 70 degree Fahrenheit. So here's 2 good sources that I used, and Phil, you can, if you want, reach out to me via email. Be happy to send you these links. But these are really good sites to just kind of look and see what disease you're looking for and what products are working, what cultural control practices to use. And with that, I'll just leave it up for questions. And before that, just wanted to say, I know there's a lot of Seahawk fans out there. I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan, so let's circle the wagons this week. And Cougs first game this weekend, so go Cougs. Any questions?
Awesome. If you guys have any questions, you can type them into the questions box there on the right. I don't think I have any so far for you. Might be off the hook.
That's fine with me.
And of course,
I kind of talked a little fast, a lot of information. So if anyone's listening, my email's here. I'd be happy to share my PowerPoint with you, so you can look at it a little more closely and in detail.
And we did get a lot of Go Hawks, of course. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Chris.